Well, can you believe we're at the quarter pole of this thing already? I mean, yeah, when this game's over, it'll be 1/3 of the way through.
Time flies when you're having fun, that's for sure.
No doubt. 3 games, 3 times, they've scored more than 30 points. My only question is, do you have any eligibility left at linebacker?
I should play probably one play, and that'll be fine, and that's it. I'm done. One and done.
It would be a good play, though.
Yeah, it would be.
They may take you up on that.
It might be a 15-yard penalty.
All right. A lot more about Penn State, Michigan, and we wrap up a little bit of Temple coming up on the Blue White Tailgate.
It'd be a 15-yard penalty, but you'd make it count.
I would definitely make it count. There's no doubt about that.
Welcome to the Blue White Tailgate. Great to have you with us. We'll take a look at Penn State and Michigan. Also look at Brandon Smith and what he's done. Gerry DiNardo later in the show. Jay Paterno in the film room as well. That should be interesting. And the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know you got assigned the good this week.
Because I am good. That's why I should be assigned that.
All right, so let's get to it. James Franklin's football team banged up, but there are a couple areas he's pleased with at this stage.
In the past, if we had one of our better players not playing well or not make a play or having to go down for a couple series and being out of the game, that we had a hard time overcoming that. Running back is a good position right now where we have created depth there and talent, and there's a lot of guys that can go in and run the offense and make plays that we can be successful with. You're starting to see that about the offensive line. I'm really starting to get excited about the offensive line. We are leaps and bounds ahead of where we were the last 2 years when it comes to pass protection. We still need to get more physical and nastier in the run game.
Yeah, they need to blow somebody off the ball. That's one of the issues, for example, on third down. They have enough third and short. You got to blow somebody off the ball to get that done.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly better than it was the last few years, but they got a long way to go. It's going to be interesting to see how they do because Michigan is so deep. They got a lot of seniors on that defense, and we'll see what happens.
Coach Franklin mentioned the offensive line, how they're leaps and bounds. What I noticed when they played Temple is the entire roster, the entire team seems to be taking that step up that he talked about. And the talent gap is no longer what it used to be when you have a Temple. Like last year, this team wasn't that much different than last year's team. Sure, they lost some key pieces, but they returned their senior quarterback. They returned their running back. A lot of key pieces were back for the Owls. Penn State was just more talented and beat them down throughout the game.
Look, and I often talk about giveaway, takeaway in the show. Take a look at the turnovers for Penn State so far this year. And look, last week, guys, Temple had 2 touchdown drives that totaled 10 yards off of takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, if you want to be a good football team, you can't do that. There's no way. I mean, Penn State is young. They are talented, but they can't overcome that many turnovers. That's
They're
for sure.
in double digits already with their turnover, or at least with their fumbles, 12 of them. Those other numbers you saw for 2014 and 2015 were the entire year. And, Steve, you mentioned we're only at the quarter pole. That's a real concern. They've got to start holding on to the football.
We talk about young and talented. And on this set, that means Andrew Callista at the update desk.
Thank you, Steve. Your blue-white tailgate update, starting with the Health South injury update report. Lots to go over here, lots of injuries. Let's start with the linebackers. It is possible Penn State is without all 3 starting LBs. Wortman White, done for the year. His career just snake-bitten here at Penn State. Kabinda, most likely out again. And Bell, doubtful for Michigan. That's a problem going up against power run game. Boost, though, is I have Grant Haley probable to go. Evan Schwan going to list him at 50-50 with the lower body injury. Blacknall is still a no-go. Coach Franklin this week addressing the celebrations across college football and his own team.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything that hurts the team. We look at those things as selfish things. You should be celebrating with your teammates. I think you guys probably see me throughout the game talking to players, not screaming at players, but talking at players when maybe I feel like they're bringing a little bit too much attention to themselves and not with their teammates.
I mean, who doesn't like to celebrate when jacking up a kicker even though the play didn't count? Didn't see much of that against James Conner and Pittsburgh, and by much of that, I meant the tackling part. Well, moving on, people all week blowing up my inbox about Who is Brandon Smith? Well, I'm going to take you into a little bit of his life. Take a look at his dance moves.
Just a little shuffle to get it going. And then, you know, from there you just break it down and you do a little leg action, get a little of everything in there. I don't get much points for, my ability to do it. I get points for the effort. Just don't show that on TV.
Trey Bauer, this one is specifically for you. The U. Going back to the 80s and 90s, the retro look, the Canes, throwbacks, orange and white, they make their debut against FSU. Personally, I was always a fan of the green and white from the early 2000s with Ken Dorsey. Guys, that's all I got for this edition of the Blue White Tailgate Update Desk.
Well, that's pretty much enough. All right, so the Trey Bauer Dance School. Don't forget about that. We'll have the 800 number up later. Next 4 games. Let's take a look at the road ahead for Penn State. It's interesting because you'll look at the records, but look, Minnesota and Maryland have not exactly played world-beating schedules here. So, I mean, some of this is very deceptive along the way. And for Brandon Smith, he knows going in this week's going to be a challenge.
We're going to prepare. We're going to do our best to make sure we're ready for this game, and it's going to be an awesome environment. They have a huge stadium, a lot of loyal fans. We're going to have fun. We're going to go in there and do our best and just enjoy the game and give it all we got.
Look, Brady Hoke recruited really well. Is this really a surprise? We're seeing Michigan now with a senior-laden team doing this.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the fact is, it's really none of Jim Harbaugh's players, right? I mean, he had the most senior team last year, most starters. They've got, 12 or 13 on offense and defense, and it does not a surprise at all.
It's a classic line from Bill Parcells. He wants to shop for the groceries, right?
Yeah.
Well, Harbaugh walks in, the groceries are already picked, the stocks are shelved, but Hoke couldn't cook. So Harbaugh gets in there, and the man's a chef. He's taking the talent, right? And he is really making it work in there. And they know what they're doing in the kitchen, and he's turned this team around. He's had a lot of experience and talent now.
Yeah. It's a series of streaks, by the way. Just a quick look at the series as we close out here. You can see it's just been a series of streaks. And Penn State's won 4 of the last 6, but we'll find out more. Coming up, we'll take a look at the offense as we continue after this. Well, you know what the Kent State game has the distinction of being, guys? The lowest scoring game for Penn State this year, 33 points. What do you think of the offense so far?
You know, it's interesting. I really like the offense. I mean, every week they seem to be getting a little bit better. The offensive line getting a little bit better. Last year, for example, I just had no confidence in them at all, and this year it's different.
And funny because a lot of our conversation stems from the fact that they're leaving points on the board, right? I mean, they're scoring over 30 points a game, and we're talking about, all the other opportunities that they had. We no longer discuss Mike Gesicki's drop problems. The guy's sure-handed, made a fantastic one-handed grab. Chris Godwin, I love the fact that they got him involved early and often in the game plan. And Trace McSorley's accuracy, 18 to 24. I mean, at any level of football, that's pretty good. Obviously, they have a few issues to fix, third down, those types of things that we're going to discuss.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a few moments. Let's get to the Stocker Chevrolet Drive of the Game, brought to you by our good friends at Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. Long, sustained drive by Penn State that starts out Trace McSorley, and there is DeAndre Tompkins. He has stepped into that role really well. And then this was a drive where it was not Saquon Barkley. They went with Mark Allen. They went with DeAndre Robinson. And you can see how fleet of foot and how nimble McSorley is. Todd, makes a big difference having a quarterback like that.
No doubt about it. And, with him, we talked about the fact you'd move that fresh set of downs. If the play's not there and he can get us a first down with his legs, keep those drives going. And that's what he did on this one.
And there's Godwin, as you talked about, Todd, being able to get into the offense early and often. All right, so there's a mishandled snap there that sets you back. And instead of being set back, you just come right back and make a play happen to Godwin there. That stuff over the middle is tough to defend, Trey. And here's Robinson right here. But that's tough to defend sometimes over the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you look at it, it's like they're mixing the pass and the run, kind of mixing it up, and it's been very successful. And they have, in my opinion, a much better balanced offense than last year.
13-play, 69-yard drive capped by Andre Robinson's first career touchdown. All right, what about our player of the week? Todd referenced earlier Chris Godwin getting in early and often. Well, he's our player of the week presented by the Family Clothesline. 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. This is his 6th career 100-yard receiving game, his first one this year. He brings a lot to the table. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tough guy, runs great routes. You know, he's a leader of the team. This is his first 100-yard game. It's certainly not going to be his last. He's going to have a bunch going forward this season.
And he showed great timing early with Trace McSorley in the Kent State game with the out patterns, but I'd like to see him coming across the middle like he did against Temple, and certainly for that touchdown right there. But they're showing great timing, and they're also showing he can get it wide open across the middle, give him some room to run when he catches the ball.
There are only 3 receivers in the history of Penn State that have 1,000 yards or better in a season. Bobby Ingram did it twice. Allen Robinson did it twice. Chris Godwin did it last year. All right, they're going to need to make plays against this secondary and against this defense. Pretty simple. I mean, what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that Michigan has a very, very strong defense. Jordan Lewis, probably one of their best players. We'll talk about Jabril Peppers later, but they expect him to be back. He really hasn't played this year, and he's going to really shore up that defense.
Simple what they need to do. It won't be simple to do it against that secondary, though. They are really, really talented.
11% on third down they've given up. Oh, yeah. No, Andrew, I'm doing the U. No, 11% on third down. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. So you get that for Penn State now. You know, that has to obviously be a key. But I think part of the key to that, though, is you've got to be really good on first and second down to then set up a makeable, workable third down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to kind of analyze this thing, but, you know, I mean, Michigan really hasn't played anybody. They played Hawaii after they went to Australia, right? Then they played UCF, who's not very good this year. Yeah. They played a Colorado team, but they got 3 defensive touchdowns. It was a much closer game than the score indicated. And, you know, we're going to find out what kind of team Michigan really is.
And Colorado go with its backup quarterback most of the game, too. Derek Dower, though, says you go into this environment, you must hold on to the football.
It's a big emphasis for us every week. And Coach Franklin says this a lot. You know, most teams in college football are going to beat themselves. And so when you turn the ball over, you're beating yourself. And against a good football team, against Michigan, if you beat yourself, they're going to capitalize. So we're not going to be able to get away with, you know, shooting ourselves in the foot.
You know what, though? I mean, that's one of the keys there. But they've actually done a good job protecting McSorley so far, Trey.
They have. I mean, you know, all we talked about is last year was the offensive line. They can't pass block. They can't get off the ball and hit somebody. You know, this year it's a much different story, Todd.
And they have a very, very tough challenge ahead because the defensive coordinator for Michigan, Don Brown, is going to bring a lot of people at that offensive line. So they're going to have a real test with their pass protection for Trace.
You look at the tapes. I'm looking at the all-22. I'm thinking there's got to be 14 guys out there. It's the entire time. Hey, Jace Franklin knows that, look, the challenge of the Michigan defense is going to be a tough one for anybody.
You know, I think their speed is a factor, but I think the biggest thing is just how big and strong they are. You know, we have 12 seniors on our team. They have 13 seniors on the 2 deep on defense and 13 seniors on the 2 deep on offense. They're just, you know, a big, strong, physical, mature team, and then they do have some speed aspects.
Yeah, it's one element I didn't like last week, guys. Penn State had 6 negative plays in the running game on first down last week. That can't happen. You've got to stay on schedule against this team. You can't get behind.
Well, and Saquon Barkley was out after 1 play, so they had to bring in the running backs with that. And you know, with Barkley, he busted off a long run against Michigan last year, and for the guy, it's like he's hiking the Appalachian Trail. You ever been on the trail? You only need like this much space to give him to get through there, and he'll carve out his own path. And that's going to eliminate those negative plays. We've seen the jump move to avoid those types of plays from Saquon.
Trey and I have driven by it. Coming up on the show, a look at the Michigan defense as well as the Penn State defense. Take a look at Gerry DiNardo as well. He'll talk with Andrew Callista. Jay, what do you have coming up in the film room?
Thanks, Steve. Today in the film room, we're going to talk about Michigan's special teams, offense and defense, because they are excellent in all 3 phases. I'm going to talk about a guy named Peppers.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show. Time to go inside the film room with Coach Jay Paterno, presented by Letterman's Sports Bar and Grill, as well as Gastro Pub. Want to welcome them on the board. Coach, You're trying to pull up an upset on the road. That means you need to be good in all phases of the game, especially special teams. Problem is, Michigan's got the edge.
Michigan is fantastic on special teams. Let's take a look at the first graphic. They have blocked or partially blocked 4 punts this year, 1 for a touchdown. They've blocked 2 field goal attempts. They have 1, and they've also outsourced some of their scoring. They have 1 punt return for a touchdown and 2 interceptions for a touchdown, scoring all over the place on special teams, making Michigan football great again. Let's take a look at that punt block. Okay, here's the diagram. They've got 3 inside guys. Michigan's going to overload the inside, put a lot of pressure on you. You take a look at how they're doing it. We'll show the video here. You're going to see the Colorado guys slide. Michigan guy comes off the edge. They block it, and ultimately they get it recovered and get it in for the score. And that's 7 cheap points. Those are things you can't do if you're going to win on the road. Now, let's say they bring the pressure again. They punt the ball. You say, thank God we got the punt off. Well, guess again. Now you got Jabril Peppers back there, runs one back, his first career punt return for a TD last week. So a lot of ways they can score on you. How important are special teams? Take a look at the next graphic because they determine the type of field position you get. You look at the difference in the point production in the halves of the last 2 games. Obviously, when Penn State's had better field position, markedly better field position, they put more points. So let's take a look at the Michigan defense now. Michigan defense matching up against Colorado's run-pass option. Again, a same kind of concept Penn State's running where they're going to run play inside and they're going to throw behind it. Here you're going to see, now Michigan plays with outside leverage. Take a look at the video. That opens up the slant, which you've seen Penn State's hit a bunch of those already this year. Colorado hit 5 or 6 of those last week against Michigan for a lot of good gains. Now, when they run the zone read with the quarterback and just Barkley in the backfield, the defensive end, Michigan likes to bring him up the field, keep his shoulders square, and force the quarterback into keeping it, and then chase it inside out. You'll see how effective that is on this when we look at the video. That defensive end keeps his shoulders square, gives the quarterback a keep read, and now he chases him inside out and makes the play on him. Their blitz game is going to be another problem for Penn State. The running backs got to do a great job in pass protection, which Barkley has done this year so far. Here, they're going to show 2 linebackers in the line. This Colorado back takes one, just hesitates for 1/2 a step and looks at the wrong guy. Next thing you know, Peppers is buzzing right back in there. We'll take a look at video. And he doesn't get there for the sack, but take a look at the hit he puts on that quarterback. That is not something you want to see a lot during the course of the game.
Tempo. 2 teams, 2 different philosophies, yet I think a lot of Penn State fans will be like, wait a minute, Michigan actually gets more plays off now.
Take a look at this graphic right here. Michigan is a huddle team, 70.7 plays per game. Penn State's a no-huddle team, 5 less plays per game. And why is that? Look at the 3rd down conversion. Michigan is extending their drives much better than Penn State is right now. Now, let's talk a little bit about what Michigan likes to do. They are big. They are physical. This is the Michigan of old. This is Bo Schembechler, Michigan. This is Jim Harbaugh, Michigan. This is a group of guys. They have got good skill guys on the outside. One of the things I anticipate them doing, because they have not had as much success running between the tackles. They've had great success on the edge. And against Penn State, they're going to use their speed to get outside. Penn State's had trouble. They're going to tighten these formations down. They're going to force these corners in the secondary to come up and make tackles, get off blocks on big people and make tackles. Take a look at this sweep. The Colorado corner comes up. He gets taken on by a fullback. The other fullback comes up, blocks one guy, blocks another guy, and down the sideline they go for a big, big touchdown. That's going to create some problems for Penn State's defense. Now, another area of concern for me, if I'm a defensive coach at Penn State, are the linebackers against the tight ends and the fullbacks. Over half the completions Michigan has right now have gone to tight ends and fullbacks, and the lead guy is Butt. He's one of their leading receivers. When they match up against Penn State's linebackers, that's going to be a problem. Take a look at this play. Here's a 3rd down and 8. They run the crossing route. They hit Butt on this crossing route 5 times last week. He catches the ball short of the 1st down, gets in there, and makes the play for a 1st down. And those are going to be things that help them extend drives.
Well, some guy that's going to help him extend drives when he gets in on offense is the one hot pepper that they got up there. He's just phenomenal.
Let's take a look at the graphic. The ghost pepper is the hottest pepper on the planet, and this guy is haunting all kinds of coaches. When I look at him on film, I look at a guy who I think may be the best football player in the country. How many guys lead their team in tackles, sacks, tackles for loss, and then can come over and be a punt returner, kick returner, and carry the ball out of the backfield?
Let's be honest. He's a DB playing linebacker, and he returns kicks. I think Michigan had one of those guys that won the Heisman Trophy.
No
they kind of
question.
know what they're doing. They have that tradition. By the way, Jay, I could get you one of those Make America hat if you want. We'll get Jim to sign it maybe out next week. And Coach Franklin didn't say, but I think he has to sign a waiver for how hot Peppers is in special teams. And why, last thing in the film room, Coach, I'm stealing your thunder here. Number 1, number 2, and number 6, I'm not calling you out by name, but come up and tackle somebody you got to tackle. When we come back on the Blue White Tailgate Show, time to break down the Penn State defense. That was great stuff today. Very good.
What, Callista shot some of this stuff? He's enamored with the Marcus Allen reaction on the extra point where Penn State's offside. So, come on. It was a penalty. Move on. But overall, 2 drives that totaled 10 yards for touchdowns in this game. So, Trey, how well did Penn State play defensively?
Well, I mean, I think Penn State played well defensively, giving up 38 rushing yards. I mean, much better than they did against Pitt. You know, Temple is not Michigan, although, you know, I hate Michigan. I don't hate them as much as Notre Dame, but I hate them anyway. But they got to do, you know, they have to play as well, and they cannot turn the ball over inside the 10 against Michigan.
Hey, Todd, there's like 7 degrees of hate for him.
It took a little more.
I don't like a lot of people.
Took a little more than half the show to show his disdain for the opponent.
Yes.
That's just getting a little bit later in the show, so that's good.
What do you think of Miami?
You don't want to know what I think about Miami. You do not want to even know. It's like,
In fact, you know what, Todd? I have an idea. What? We'll come up and we'll just do a segment where we just throw stuff back and forth to him and see what he likes and what he doesn't like.
That's right. Why do you hate? Why he's a hater of these opponents? But hey, you can see why, right? I mean, you played against these teams, and you know what's up. But you mentioned the defense. You mentioned the rushing defense. Only 38 yards after being gashed by Pitt. So that was nice that they took care of that business. What I want to see out of them, and what you want to see out of them, is a few less touchdowns, and that's going to be a really big deal against Michigan because they couldn't keep Pitt out of the end zone. So you want to see this team stiffen up in the red zone.
Family Clothesline Defensive Player of the Week. The walk-on and with the Lewisburg High School out of Winfield, Brandon Smith. Here's a guy who had 68 plays in his career, only 3 on defense before Saturday. Then he was on the field for 44. Okay, you know middle linebackers. How well did he react to things?
I think he did great. I mean, the fact is that the kid got thrown in an almost impossible situation. And, you know, everything you hear about from the staff about this kid is that he's always prepared. He's always prepared in practice. And he was ready to go. His number was called. And he did great.
He knows how to play.
Yes.
Now, maybe you're a quarter or a half step off on some things, but he knows how to play. In other words, he sees things and he believes it.
Yeah, yeah.
See, there's that quarter to half step miss right there.
Yep.
Right.
But he also missed the guy, but he came and chased him down.
Right. And he got him to the outside. But the linebackers are decimated right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that Kabinda, Naeem Wortman-White, and Brandon Bell were all not playing, and you had Bowen, Cooper, and Brandon Smith, I mean, I would say it would be like a disaster. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do in the Big House.
We'll go back in history for your team in particular, or any team, and think about, okay, well, let's just wipe out the entire starting linebacker unit. I mean, that's about as challenging as it gets for a defense.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Now, let's get to the hit of the week. You referenced Manny Bowen. Here's the hit of the week, all right? Check this out. Here he comes. Down he goes.
That's a good play. Good, solid play.
But that's the burst Manny Bowen has, Trey.
Yeah. I mean, he's a very athletic guy. You know, he's played a lot of offense in high school. He's got good wheels, and you know, he prepares well. So, I mean, I guess it's not surprising. It's just that they haven't had a lot of playing time, and now all of a sudden they're stepping up and they're doing great.
And you can see in that second shot of the hit of the week, you know, you look at the first one and he's coming right at Philip Walker and you're thinking, well, why didn't he get out of the way? Well, it was in slow motion. And the second one showed that Walker really didn't have that much time. So it showed that burst you're talking about, Steve.
Yeah, and then let's get to another part, too. The matchup's going to be that defensive line against the offensive line here. What do you think of that one right there?
Well, I mean, it's going to be great to have Givens back. I think that, you know, Michigan is always solid on the offensive line. They always get these giant guys dating back to when I was playing. You know, they're a veteran group. So, you know, if I were Michigan, I would try to run the ball, establish the run, and just try to run them over.
All right, so James Franklin on the challenge of facing that matchup inside.
You know, being able to stop the run and be really physical across the defensive line and gap sound and things like that is going to be really, really important, because if they can establish the run and play action pass you, then, you know, they're really difficult to defend. And obviously when they have playmakers like their two wideouts, big, long, fast, athletic guys, as well as their tight end, who's very gifted route runner and receiver. You know, that causes some real challenges for you.
You know, I watch the tape style. The first thing I see is everybody is trying to take away the Michigan run. They're trying to make them one-dimensional.
You guys think we'll see some jet sweeps this game? We might see a jet sweep or two.
With number 5. Okay? Number 5.
That we've had a few issues with. But, you know, it's funny because Garrett Sickles talked about at halftime of the Pitt game, they got back to the fundamentals and just did gap integrity and just keeping, you know, just the basic fundamentals of defense. They were trying to do too much and being 1/11th of a defense. Everybody just handling their own assignment.
Yep. Absolutely. Coming up, we'll get the perspective of Gerry DiNardo from BTN. Andrew Callista will have a conversation with him. Still to come, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're really the good?
I am the good.
After this. Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate. Time to get some outside perspective. Andrew Callista standing by to talk with Gerry DiNardo.
We welcome Coach Gerry DiNardo to the program. Coach, jumping right into it, not many people giving Penn State a chance this week against Michigan. How do you see this game going?
Well, they certainly have a chance. I think their biggest challenge is on offense, dealing with the pressure that I anticipate Michigan giving them. As everybody knows, Penn State's gone through the spread. They run a lot of RPOs, run-pass options. If there's too many guys in the box, they check to a pass. I suspect there'll be too many guys in the box to block for the run most of the day. I expect Michigan to pressure. If Penn State can handle it, they'll be in it.
Speaking of the Michigan defense, Mr. Peppers over there, the switch to outside linebacker, how have you seen his game change?
Well, you have to account for him, Andrew, in the protection. That's how the game's changed, not only for him, for the entire defense, and certainly for all the opponents. When he was playing a secondary player, it's pretty easy to see when a secondary guy is going to come on some kind of pressure. A linebacker, not so much. So he lines up close enough to the line of scrimmage where no matter what your protection is, you're going to have to account for him. And that is a serious issue for every offense to set their protection based on Peppers. It's a little bit unusual, to tell you the truth.
Is it too early in the season for maybe a Heisman hype machine to get going behind him?
Well, I'm a Heisman vote. I think so. I mean, let's see how he does against Penn State and the rest of the Big Ten. It's hard to vote for a defensive player as a voter because you'd have to watch a lot of other defensive players to compare him to each other, whereas offensively it's obvious what a running back's doing from coast to coast or a quarterback or so on. So it's a hard thing to do, not impossible to do, but I certainly wait until later in the season because I base my decision on watching game tape, and there's just not enough available right now for Peppers.
Keeping it on the defensive side of the ball, but switching it over to Penn State, they're decimated at linebackers. As a coach, how do you get your team motivated knowing that your top 3 tacklers are out for a game?
Well, it's the nature of the game. It's, you know, if you want to use the phrase next man up, if you want to use the phrase someone's misfortune is someone else's fortune, I think most people that are involved in athletics, whether it's football or any other sport, you know, they understand this. Nobody's going to give up. You just step up and you do the best you can. I think it's up to the coaches, perhaps, to adjust some things they're doing to the new personnel. But as far as a young person, you know, some of those young people probably thought they were the best players and should have been playing anyway. So I think young people just move on.
I know you and Glenn talked a lot about the Penn State-Pitt game before the season. The road has not been kind to Penn State. In your mind, do you see the first half Penn State team coming out against Michigan or the second half team we saw against Pitt coming out at the Big House?
Well, I'd be surprised if it's not the second half team. That's their last memory of being on the road. That's when they played the best. And you know, it should be something that they have a good feel for right now. You know, again, Andrew, all these things, these young people are used to this. I mean, I think we in the media perhaps make a big deal out of it at a certain time, but I don't think this phases the young people as much as we think it does.
Coach, I love the answer. Us in the media exaggerate something. Not at all. Your impressions of Joe Moorhead's offense, because a lot of people here in Happy Valley going off that second half of Pitt game really impressed.
Well, I think it was a great move. The one thing I think people forget sometimes is what James Franklin said. One of the reasons they went to the spread, other than that's what he was doing at Vanderbilt, and he wants to be a spread coach and is a spread coach, one of the reasons was to help the offensive line. We're not talking about sacks. We're not talking about the problems with Penn State's offensive line. And part of that is the players have gotten better and they have more depth and all that. But I think a significant part of it is if you want to help your offensive line, one of the ways to do it is to put this spread formation in and run the spread offense. And I think Joe's done that as an expert, and I think it's really helped their offensive line. It's also getting their playmakers the ball. It's the best of both worlds.
Coach, real quick, the Big Ten getting a lot of pub nationally, especially in SEC territory. How good is the conference?
The conference is real good. And the smartest thing they've done, and the smartest things Jim Delaney's done and the ADs, is to get the 9 conference games, schedule big-time games in September. Because remember this, people outside the footprint, no matter what footprint you live in, people outside the footprint only watch you before the conference play starts and after conference play ends in bowl seasons, because most people are involved in their own conference play. They're not going to watch Ohio State and Oklahoma, but they'll sure as heck watch them in September.
Coach, really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you having me.
Steve, from our mouths to your ears.
It's the conference opener, for everybody across the board. I mean, what does it mean just to get out of the gate in this thing?
Well, I mean, I think it's really important for Penn State to get a fast start. If they don't get a fast start in the big house and they get the crowd into the game, it's going to be a rough day for Penn State. 9
conference games, 0 wins on the road last year in the conference. So it'd be nice to get off to a good start for Penn State. And Gerry was a great guest to have. He gets to watch all those Big Ten teams and those Big Ten programs. So he knows what to expect as we get started with Big Ten play.
Yeah, and a lot of people are excited about what they've seen for the Big Ten so far. Michigan State had the win over Notre Dame. Ohio State won at Oklahoma. Michigan's 3-0, so people are feeling pretty good about the conference right now.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are talking about it, and there's a guy in Alabama, Paul Feinbaum, who's kind of like a local legend down there, and he basically has proclaimed the Big Ten as the best conference in the country, which I can't disagree.
Boy, that must have hurt him to say that.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
He's hearing it on his program, I'm sure.
We'll take a look at one of the teams that maybe people feel he should be talking more about, Michigan, after this. Well, Nick Saban might be the most dominant guy in college football, at least in recent years, but the most dominant personality in college football the last 2 years is Jim Harbaugh. We have put together our own file, our own dossier on him. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Harbaugh. He's done a great job with Brady Hoke's talent, plus he's added in some of his own. Guys like Rashawn Gary and guys like that have made an impact for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's recruited well in New Jersey. The fact he got Rashawn Gary, the fact is, I just don't like him. He's just not a likable person. He's kind of a whiner, and he wears those stupid khakis, and I just can't stand him, Todd.
You're a hard act to follow when you say stuff like that.
I'll lead you, Todd. I don't think of Don Brown's influence.
He's kind of the quarterback whisperer, though, isn't he? I mean, Colin Kaepernick is a backup for San Francisco now. Oh, by the way, he took him to the Super Bowl when Jim Harbaugh was there. Look, no doubt he's one of the quirkiest personalities going, and he does crazy things in the college game to recruit these kids. He's probably more of a college coach than a pro coach because he'll wear you out, and the kids cycle through. But it is amazing. He's just a brilliant football mind, and he just knows football, and he makes good decisions about staff and hiring. I mean, we're going to talk about Don Brown, his defensive coordinator. I mean, getting him from Boston College was just was a great move.
DJ Durkin is now the head coach at Maryland. He had to replace him, so they bring in Don Brown, and he will unleash the hounds. He will blitz left and right, and James Franklin says they know all about Don Brown.
Instead of him just running the package that he's been running forever and that he ran at Boston College, I think he shows up at Michigan They were pretty successful already in what they were doing. I think he's taken some of those aspects of what they were doing the year before and blended it with some of the stuff that he believes in and has been doing as well. And I think he also feels like they have the size and the depth and the talent that maybe they don't have to do as much as what he did at Boston College, if that.
How good a job did Don Brown do at Boston College? They didn't win a single ACC game last year, and they were in the top 5 in the nation in defense. It's pretty good. All right, what about the Michigan defense? Well, as Trey mentioned earlier, they have not exactly faced Murderers Row.
No, they haven't.
But the numbers are good.
Against terrible opponents.
You don't like them, do you?
It says
No, I
taking
don't.
care of business, Trey. They're taking care of business
against
the
Hawaii,
schedule.
UCF, and who? Colorado?
Yeah,
Give me a break.
You're right, but we mentioned the secondary, and we did mention like the pass defense. You see their yardage. They only allowed 130-some to Christian Hackenberg last year. I mean, the secondary's been good, and they're even better this year.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be tough to move the ball definitely through the air against them.
The problem they've had, what they thought was going to be they were a donut team. Great up front, great in the secondary, no linebackers. So they took Peppers and made him a linebacker. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the Jabril Peppers file. And check out this dossier. Leads in sacks, leads in tackles for losses, leads in tackles, leads in kick returns. Oh, by the way, you put him on offense, and he leads the team in all-purpose yards.
Wow. He's the real deal. He's a great player. You know, I had some people that I was close to, obviously close to the program at Penn State. And, you know, I had heard that he was going to come to Penn State. He was going to decommit from Michigan. And then when Bill took the job in Houston, he decided to, you know, honor his commitment. But he knows Penn State very well.
Yeah. Fifth-year senior, right?
Wish.
Oh, wait a second.
Wish.
Just a sophomore.
Yeah.
This guy's unbelievable. He was not only the co-defensive player of the week for the Big Ten, he went ahead and won the Special Teams Player of the Week award in the same week. Returned a kick for a touchdown and, you know, over 200 all-purpose yards in the game, 3.5 tackles for loss. You ask him to do something, and he excels at it.
He and Christian McCaffrey are the two best all-around players in college football right now. McCaffrey's a brilliant return guy, receiver, running back as well. Doesn't play defense, but you can keep your defense on the sideline when McCaffrey's out there too. Derek Dowry, impressed by what number 5 can do.
He is a playmaker, though, so we have to, you know, focus and get our stuff done. But I think if we do what we're supposed to do what we're coached to do, then we'll limit, you know, as much as possible his impact on the game.
Well, he can have an impact because they'll use him on returns, offense, defense, all around. You'll see 5 everywhere. Offensively, I thought Wilton Speight did a great job last year when he was thrown into the fire after Jake Rudock got hurt at Minnesota. He played very well, and he directed the game when he drive. A lot of teams have tried to take the running game away from Michigan this year, yet Speight stepped up to play pretty well for them.
Well, I think that's going to be the MO for Penn State as well, is they're going to put the pressure on Wilton Speight if they can. And he's finished drives. He's got 8 touchdown throws. He hasn't really completed a ton of passes, but, you know, for decent yardage. But he's finished those drives. He's got 8 TD passes. 6'6", highly recruited. He was in the Under Armour All-American game when he was in high school. So, you know, the talent is there, and you got Harbaugh working with him. So you know you expect good things out of him.
And Brandon Smith is the kind of guy that knows you have to be aware of every skilled player on every play.
It comes down to just doing our job. We all have a role on the defense, and you know, reading our keys, you know, just getting to our assignment, our responsibility. That's the first step, and it'll go a long way. You know, from there, it's just about hustle and you know, 11 guys getting to the football. So, you know, someone misses a tackle, misses, you know, a pass breakup, 2 other guys are going to get there to tackle them. So that's kind of the approach we're going to take.
I mean, good running backs, not great running backs there, but the wideouts, Darboh, J.U. Chesson, the tight end Jake Butt might be the best one in the country. So they have a lot of options to turn to here.
Yeah, they do. And I think what they do is they really kind of keep their game plan offensively kind of narrow and short. They don't ask him to do too much. I think that I would be very surprised if we don't see a lot of Peppers on Saturday on the offensive side of the ball. But you know, again, Penn State just has to kind of do what they have to do and let the chips fall where they may.
Look, the fact of the matter is our linebacker core is decimated. Michigan is going to score points. The question is how many, and the offense is going to have to keep up for the Nittany Lions. Michigan's offense will put the ball in the end zone. Let's just keep them out of there as many times as possible. They can kick some field goals.
Well, Dan Dierdorf told Jack Ham and me Peppers is their best tailback. We'll come back with the good, the bad, and the ugly after this. Well, they did commemorate Joe Paterno's first game on Saturday. As a former player, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I thought it was long overdue. I think the fact is that Penn State has a long way to go to kind of like, you know, bridge that gap between the former players and certainly the Paterno family. I think this is a good first start, and we'll see what happens.
Well, in one word, reaction to it was predictable. Standing ovation when the video tribute came up, small group of protesters up in one side of the stadium, and people gathered outside the area where Joe Pa's statue used to be to commemorate and honor him there as well.
And the Friday night thing was incredibly moving. Maybe the last of that kind. You see that many Lettermen at one point.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I was there, and you know, it was one of the most amazing things I've ever been to. I mean, I've met the President of the United States when we won the national championship. I've been in the College Football Hall of Fame dinners. I've been to a lot of different places, and to have all those Lettermen come back, and it was a who's who of Penn State football, and it was something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, the Reagan Library has a plaque of you meeting. No. Okay.
Stood next to George Bush, the first.
Time now for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Todd, I can't bring myself to say it. Trey, you're the good.
I'm always good. You know what I think is good, and I kind of said it earlier, is the fact that Penn State has starting to come around and starting to recognize all the accomplishments, all the things that Joe Paterno did for this university. I mean, to me, I think it's a really good thing. It's a first step. They got a long way to go, but I think it's a good first step.
All right, I get the bad in this, and that would be the players dropping the ball before the goal line. Happened in the Cal-Texas game, happened in the Oklahoma-Ohio State game. A, it's stupid. 2, it's showboating. And I thought every play was reviewed in the booth. Stop going out for donuts.
Oh, why? Exactly why? Okay, I get the ugly. Besides my prediction of Notre Dame beating Michigan State last week that Trey made me hear about, I'll give you 2 other quick uglies. How about Pitt's secondary? We threw for over 330 yards. Penn State did. Oklahoma State, 540 from their quarterback, Mason Rudolph. And can anybody cover James Washington? 296 receiving yards in the game. The other ugly, North Dakota State beats Iowa in Iowa, and the Hawkeyes had to pay him to do it. They gave him $500,000 to come and beat them in their own stadium.
Time now for the difference-making picks that make a difference in your life. Jay Paterno, you are up first.
Thanks, Steve. I've got Florida, Tennessee. Florida has won the last 11. The last 2 have been close. I still like Florida. I'm not buying Tennessee yet. Florida's got much better defense. Over to you, Todd.
I get Georgia, Ole Miss, and they say Alabama doesn't beat you just once. They beat you twice. I still think Ole Miss will have a hangover. We'll go with the Bulldogs.
I've got Arkansas, Texas A&M. Arkansas will run the ball, win the clock, win the game.
Bucky, Wisconsin at Michigan State. I think it's going to be a rude awakening for Wisconsin. I think Michigan State rolls by double digits.
You get to go keys to the game first.
My keys to the game is going to be basically our punter, Gillikin. If he can kind of put them in bad situations, bad territory, and our net punting, if our net punting is good, I think Penn State's got a legitimate shot to win the game.
Win more possessions than they do. This is going to be a possession game.
I think you got to rattle Wilton Spate into making some mistakes. Michigan is going to pressure Trace McSorley. We need to do the same thing to their quarterback and hope the Wolverines QB makes some big mistakes.
Coming up on next week's show, we're going to dedicate 2 segments to all the things Trey doesn't like. Enjoy the game.